Have you ever wondered about the deeper meanings of life and its hidden secrets? Do you feel like you're searching for something beyond your daily routine? Join us on a unique journey where the protagonist faces unexpected challenges that change their perspective on life and self. In this story, we'll explore wisdom and philosophy, uncovering the true meaning of existence. Ready to discover the secrets and find inner peace? It's a journey with PadSTOry, taking you deep within yourself. Let's begin and uncover what happens next. Beyond the surface, Slim woke up in the middle of a dense forest, with no memory of how he got there or why he was alone. The air was thick with mist, and the stillness around him was unnerving yet strangely peaceful. His heart raced, but a calmness settled over him, urging him to keep moving forward. As he walked deeper into the forest, questions flooded his mind. Why am I here? What is this place? Yet, despite the confusion, he felt an inexplicable sense of peace, as though this moment, this journey, was meant to be. Suddenly, a soft light appeared through the fog in the distance, drawing him in. He moved toward it, feeling a pull, an unseen force guiding his steps. As he approached, a figure emerged from the mist, a wise old man whose presence was both calming and mysterious. "Welcome, traveler," the old man said, his voice deep and steady. "Your journey has just begun." Slim, overwhelmed by the encounter, could barely find words. The old man smiled knowingly before vanishing back into the mist, leaving Slim with only the weight of his words. He stood still for a moment, reflecting on the brief but profound meeting. The strange calmness that had come over him began to make sense. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Slim knew he wasn't lost anymore. He was simply beginning to discover the path meant for him, and whatever came next would lead him to a truth he had yet to understand. Slim stood still in the mist, the faint light from the old man fading into the fog. He felt a pull within him, a sense that he was meant to follow something, perhaps the path that had just begun to reveal itself. Despite the uncertainty, a strange sense of direction settled in his heart. There was no turning back now. As he moved forward, the forest around him began to shift. The trees, once dark and looming, now seemed to open up, their trunks thinning, allowing glimpses of distant spaces beyond. Slim's footsteps seemed louder in the stillness, echoing through the fog as if the forest itself was listening. The air grew cooler as he walked, but a feeling of anticipation began to rise within him. He wasn't sure where this journey would take him, but the strange calmness remained, urging him to continue. The mist thickened again, and soon Slim found himself standing before a large stone archway, its surface covered in ancient carvings. The air felt heavy around it, as though the archway was a threshold, a boundary between the known and the unknown. Slim hesitated, unsure if he should pass through, but something within him urged him forward, and without thinking, he stepped closer to the arch. The moment he passed through, the fog began to dissipate. He found himself on a new path, surrounded by tall grass and wildflowers, with sunlight streaming through the trees above. The transition was sudden, but Slim felt an overwhelming sense of peace, as if the journey had brought him to the place he was meant to be. There were no questions now, no uncertainty, only the soft hum of nature around him. As he continued along the path, Slim noticed a figure in the distance, sitting quietly by a stream. It was a young woman, her posture relaxed, but her gaze intense as she stared at the flowing water. Something about her presence felt familiar, as though he had seen her before in his dreams. She looked up, her eyes locking with his. Without a word, she gestured for him to approach. Slim walked toward her, a strange feeling of recognition stirring within him, though he had never met her before. When he reached her, she smiled softly and spoke, her voice gentle and calm. "You're searching for something, aren't you?" Slim paused, surprised by her words. I think I am," he replied, "but I don't know what." She nodded, as if she already knew. "The answers are within you," she said quietly. "But you must first look within yourself. Only by understanding who you are can you truly understand the world around you." Slim felt a warmth in her words, though they left him with more questions than answers. Who was he really? What was he searching for? The woman's gaze softened, and she stood up, motioning for Slim to follow her as she began to walk down the path. "Come," she said, "there's much more for you to discover." Without hesitation, Slim followed her, feeling that this was another step on his journey. As they walked, the world around him seemed to shift again. The path narrowed, and the trees grew taller, their branches intertwining above, creating a canopy of leaves that filtered the sunlight into soft beams. The air smelled fresh, filled with the scent of pine and wildflowers, and Slim felt more alive than he ever had. But despite the beauty of the forest, there was still a nagging feeling at the back of his mind. What was he really searching for? What did all of this mean? The woman beside him remained silent, as though she was waiting for him to find the answer on his own. The deeper they walked, the more Slim realized that this journey wasn't just about finding answers. It was about discovering who he was and what he was meant to become. The forest was not just a place of mystery. It was a reflection of his own mind, his own soul. With each step, Slim was peeling back the layers of his own existence, uncovering pieces of himself that he had long forgotten or never knew existed. As the path led them further into the heart of the forest, Slim knew that he was no longer just walking through a strange, unfamiliar world. He was walking through his own mind, his own heart. The journey was not just about finding answers. It was about understanding himself and his place in the world. And with that realization, Slim felt a sense of peace wash over him, knowing that the road ahead would be challenging, but it would also be the key to unlocking the mysteries of his own soul. As the path stretched out before Slim, the woman beside him remained silent, walking with purpose, but not rushing. The forest around them had transformed again, the trees now giving way to a wide, open meadow filled with soft golden light. The air was crisp, and the flowers swayed gently in the breeze. Slim couldn't help but feel the weight of something unseen, a quiet pressure that seemed to be building within him. They stopped at the edge of the meadow, where a large, tranquil lake mirrored the sky above. The surface of the water was perfectly still, reflecting the world around them with such clarity that it seemed like the boundaries between reality and reflection had blurred. For a moment, Slim simply stared at the lake, mesmerized by its beauty. "You see," the woman's voice broke through his thoughts, "the water doesn't lie. It shows you everything, yet nothing at all. It is a reflection of what you bring to it." Slim looked at her, unsure of what she meant. "What do you mean? It's just water." She smiled softly. "It's more than that. The lake is a mirror. It shows you the truth, but only if you are willing to see it." She gestured toward the lake, urging him to look deeper. Slowly, Slim stepped closer to the water's edge and gazed into its depths. At first, he only saw the reflection of the trees and the sky, but as he focused, something shifted. The reflection in the water began to change. Instead of the peaceful scene he had seen moments before, the water now showed images of himself, of different moments in his life. He saw himself as a child, playing in the yard with friends. He saw moments of joy, of laughter, but also moments of pain and loss. The images shifted like a slideshow, faster and faster, showing fragments of his past, memories he had buried long ago. There were moments of fear, doubt, and confusion, times when he had felt lost and uncertain. And then there were moments of clarity, moments when he had felt true joy, moments of hope. Slim stepped back, his heart racing. "What is this? Why am I seeing this?" The woman stood beside him, her gaze focused on the water. "This is the truth you've been avoiding," she said softly. "The water shows you everything, the good, the bad, and the things you have forgotten. But it's up to you how you choose to see it." Slim's mind was racing. He had always thought of his life as a collection of moments, a series of events that shaped him. But seeing those images laid out before him, it was as if the story of his life had been written in ways he hadn't understood before. He saw the choices he had made, the paths he had taken, and the ones he had turned away from. He saw the people he had loved and lost, and the times when he had been too afraid to open his heart. "I didn't know," Slim murmured, still gazing into the water. "I didn't realize how much of my past still affects me." The woman nodded. "We often carry our past with us without realizing how much it shapes who we are. But the truth is, the past doesn't define you. It only shapes the journey you choose to take." Slim turned to her, a new understanding settling in his chest. "So, what do I do with all of this?" The woman smiled again, her eyes full of wisdom. "You accept it. You acknowledge your past, but you don't let it control you. You choose who you want to be now, in this moment. The truth you see is only a part of your story, but it doesn't have to be the whole story." Slim took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. For the first time, he felt a sense of clarity. The weight of his past, the mistakes, the regrets, and the pain, they didn't have to define him. He could choose how to move forward. He looked back at the lake, the reflections of his past slowly fading as the water grew still once more. "I think I understand," he said quietly. "It's not about forgetting what happened. It's about accepting it and moving forward." The woman nodded approvingly. "Exactly. And now you are free to continue your journey, knowing that the past will no longer hold you back." Slim took one last look at the lake, its surface calm once again. He felt lighter somehow, as though a burden had been lifted. The reflection was no longer a mirror of his past. It was a reminder that he had the power to shape his future. As he turned to walk away, the woman gave him a final piece of advice. "The truth is a powerful thing, but so is the freedom that comes with it. Don't be afraid to embrace it." With that, Slim began walking down the path once more, the weight of the world on his shoulders now replaced with a new sense of purpose. He was no longer just walking through the forest. He was walking toward a future he had the power to create. Slim continued his journey through the forest, the lessons of the past still fresh in his mind. The weight of his past no longer felt like a burden but a lesson, and for the first time, he could feel his heart lighter. The woman's words echoed in his thoughts. "The past doesn't define you. It only shapes the journey you choose to take." Each step forward seemed to bring him closer to understanding himself, to unlocking the truth of who he truly was. But the path ahead was not as simple as he had hoped. The trees grew denser again, their trunks closer together, their canopies blocking out the sunlight. The air felt heavier now, thicker, as though something was waiting just beyond his sight. His steps began to slow as the path narrowed, and he felt a strange tension building in the air around him. As he moved forward, he came across a fork in the road. The path split into two directions, both leading deep into the forest. One path veered left, leading toward a dark, shadowy area of trees, while the other went right, toward a clearing where the sunlight filtered through the branches, casting a warm, golden glow on the ground. Each path seemed to beckon him in its own way, and for a moment, Slim stood still, unsure of which direction to take. The air was thick with anticipation as Slim tried to decide. He had learned to trust his instincts, but now, for the first time in his journey, he felt torn. Both paths seemed important, but how could he choose? And what if the wrong decision led him away from the truth he had been seeking? Just then, he heard a voice from behind him. He turned around to find a figure emerging from the trees, a man with a hooded cloak, his face hidden in the shadow of his hood. His presence was quiet, yet it carried an air of wisdom, as though he had been watching Slim's journey from afar. "You've reached the crossroads," the man said in a deep, calm voice. "A decision lies before you, one that will shape the rest of your journey." Slim hesitated before speaking. "I don't know which path to take, Both feel important, but I don't know what's waiting on either one. The man nodded slowly, stepping closer to Slim. That is the nature of choice. It's not always clear, and the path that seems easiest may not be the one that leads to growth. Both paths have their challenges. One may be bright and welcoming, but that does not mean it is the right one for you. The other may be dark and unknown, but sometimes it is through the darkness that we find the light we seek. Slim felt a sense of unease. The man's words rang true, but they only added to the confusion. Which path would help him grow? Which one would bring him closer to the truth he sought? He looked back at the fork, unsure. The man's voice broke through his thoughts. Do not fear the darkness. It is only in the unknown that we learn who we truly are. The path to growth often requires us to face our fears, to step into the uncertainty, and trust that it will lead us to where we need to be. Slim took a deep breath, his mind swirling with the decision. He had already learned so much, but now it was time to face a choice that would define the next chapter of his journey. The man's words made sense, but the fear of the unknown still lingered. Which one did you choose? Slim asked, his voice filled with curiosity. The man gave a small smile, his eyes gleaming with wisdom. I chose both, he replied, his voice soft. I took the first step down one path, and when I was ready, I turned and chose the other. There is no wrong choice, only the lessons you learn along the way. Slim took a moment to absorb the man's words. There was no right or wrong path, only the lessons he would learn as he walked. And in that moment, he understood. It was not about the destination, but about how he chose to journey. With newfound clarity, Slim turned to face the fork in the road once more. He felt a deep sense of peace as he took his first step toward the darker path on the left. The shadows were daunting, but something inside him told him that this was the way forward, the way to uncover more about himself. And so, without hesitation, he walked forward into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. As he walked deeper into the shadows, the light from behind him began to fade, but the path ahead seemed to stretch infinitely forward, as though welcoming him into the heart of the forest. He had made his choice, and now, with every step, he was one step closer to the truth that had been waiting for him all along. Slim walked through the shadowy path, the dense trees looming above him like silent sentinels. The light from the clearing behind him had all but vanished, and now only faint glimmers of light broke through the thick canopy above, casting long, eerie shadows on the forest floor. The air had become cooler, and the quiet around him was almost oppressive, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves and the distant sound of water. Every step he took seemed to draw him deeper into the unknown, and yet, with each step, Slim felt a strange pull, a sense that this was exactly where he needed to be. The unease from earlier had begun to fade, replaced by an overwhelming sense of curiosity and determination. The further he ventured, the more he felt that this path held something important, something he couldn't yet understand, but knew he must discover. The silence was broken suddenly by a soft, melodic voice that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. "You've chosen the darker path, haven't you?" Startled, Slim looked around, trying to locate the source of the voice. He could see no one. The voice was gentle, but filled with an unsettling depth. "Who's there?" Slim called, his voice breaking the silence. "You can't see me, but I am here," the voice replied calmly. "I have been waiting for you." Slim felt a chill run down his spine. "Waiting for me? Why?" A soft, unseen laugh echoed through the trees. "You seek the truth, but you also fear it. The darkness is where you will confront your deepest fears and desires. It's where you'll face yourself in ways you never have before. But do not fear, for this journey is part of the whole. The path you've chosen will bring you closer to the answers you seek, but only if you are willing to confront what you have hidden within." Slim paused, taking in the words. The forest around him seemed to close in, the shadows deepening as he continued his journey. It felt as though the trees themselves were watching him, waiting for something to unfold. A sense of vulnerability washed over him, and for the first time since beginning this journey, Slim questioned himself. What if I'm not ready? What if I can't face what lies ahead? "You doubt yourself," the voice spoke again, as if reading his mind. "But that is the first step, acknowledging the fear. Only then can you overcome it." Slim swallowed hard, pushing the doubt aside. He had come this far, and there was no turning back now. He had faced his past, confronted his inner truth, and now it was time to face whatever lay ahead. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, each movement deliberate, despite the growing uncertainty within him. The path grew steeper as he descended into a small valley. The trees here were ancient, their trunks twisted and gnarled, their branches stretched high into the air like dark, skeletal arms. The ground was uneven, covered with moss and fallen leaves that muffled his steps. The deeper he went, the more the world around him seemed to change. The sounds of the forest grew distant, and an almost palpable quiet settled around him. Eventually, he reached the edge of a small clearing. In the center stood a large stone well, its surface covered in vines and moss. The well appeared ancient, its edges worn and weathered by time. For a moment, Slim simply stood there, staring at the well. The voice spoke again, this time more softly. "Look into the well, and you will see what you seek." Slim approached the well cautiously. The air around it felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy. He peered into the dark, murky water, but it reflected nothing at first, only darkness. He leaned in closer, his reflection barely visible in the surface. The air seemed to grow colder still, and a strange compulsion filled him. Something within him urged him to look deeper. He dropped to his knees and looked more intently into the well. Slowly, the darkness in the water began to shift. Images appeared at first vague, then clearer, one after another. He saw himself again, but this time he saw his fears, his insecurities. He saw moments of self-doubt, the times he had held himself back from pursuing his dreams, the moments when he chose comfort over growth. But the images didn't stop there. He saw the strength within himself, the times when he had risen above his fears, when he had taken risks and chosen courage. The faces of loved ones, friends, and strangers he had helped appeared before him, each one leaving a mark on his heart. Slim watched as the well mirrored the true essence of who he was, the good and the bad, the light and the dark. He saw the choices that had shaped his life and the power within himself to change the course of his future. As the images faded, Slim stood up, his heart pounding. The voice spoke once more, soft yet powerful. Do you see now? The darkness is not to be feared. It is a part of you, a part of your story. Embrace it, and you will find that the path you fear the most can lead you to the light you seek. Slim felt the weight of the words settle within him. He had feared the darkness, but now he understood. It was not a force to be avoided. It was a part of him, a part of everyone. It was through embracing both the light and the dark that one could truly find themselves. With newfound clarity, Slim turned away from the well and continued down the path. The journey ahead was still unknown, but now he faced it with a sense of purpose. The darkness no longer held power over him. It had become a guide, a force of transformation that would lead him to the truth he sought. The deeper Slim ventured into the heart of the forest, the more the world around him seemed to shift. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth, and the shadows of the trees stretched long across the path, like the silent arms of something ancient and unknown. With each step, the darkness seemed to grow thicker, the silence heavier. Yet, with each passing moment, Slim felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. The path was no longer an obstacle. It was a journey into the very core of his being. The voice that had guided him before had fallen silent, and Slim now walked alone, save for the occasional rustling of leaves beneath his feet. Despite the eerie quiet, there was a sense that he was not truly alone. Something was watching, waiting for him to continue. The forest felt alive, breathing in rhythm with his own steps, pulling him deeper into its embrace. As Slim rounded a bend in the path, he came across a strange sight. A clearing bathed in soft, silver light. At the center of the clearing stood a stone altar, ancient and weathered by time. The altar was surrounded by a circle of stones, each one different, as though they had been chosen for their unique qualities. The air around the altar seemed charged with an electric energy, as though something important was about to unfold. Slim stepped forward cautiously, drawn to the altar despite the uncertainty that lingered in his chest. As he approached, a voice, this time familiar and soothing, spoke from the shadows. "You have come far, Slim," the voice said softly. "But this is the place where you must face the greatest trial of all, the trial of the heart." Slim's heart skipped a beat. He knew this voice. It was the woman who had guided him earlier, the one who had shown him the mirror of truth and the power of the past. She stepped from the shadows, her presence calm and centered, as though she were a part of the very forest itself. "The trial of the heart?" Slim asked, his voice filled with confusion. "What do you mean?" She smiled gently, her eyes full of wisdom. "This trial is not one of the mind or body. It is a trial of your soul, of your deepest desires, fears, and emotions. It is here that you will confront your heart, the core of who you are, and the choices you have made. Only by facing this trial can you continue on your journey and move closer to the truth that awaits you." Slim felt a knot tighten in his chest. The journey so far had been challenging, but this felt different. This was not a trial of strength or intellect. It was a trial of the heart, a test of his emotions, his deepest feelings, and the truths he had kept hidden even from himself. The woman motioned toward the altar. "Place your hands on the stone," she instructed. "When you do, you will be presented with a vision, your heart's truest desire. But be warned, Slim. The heart's desires are not always what the mind thinks they should be. It is a path that may challenge everything you know." Slim hesitated, his breath shallow. He had already confronted his past, faced the darkness, and navigated the unknown. But this felt different. It felt personal, more intimate, more raw. But something deep within him told him that this was the next step. If he was to move forward, he needed to face this trial. So, with a deep breath, he stepped forward and placed his hands on the cold, weathered stone of the altar. Immediately, the world around him shifted. The clearing seemed to fade into mist, and he found himself standing in the midst of a vast, empty expanse. The sky above him was dark, the stars scattered across the heavens like diamonds. A single light illuminated a figure in the distance. As he walked toward it, the figure slowly became clearer. It was him, or rather, a version of himself. But this version was different. He was standing tall, confident, his eyes filled with purpose. Slim felt a sense of unease as he approached. The figure turned to him, a knowing smile on its face. "I see you've made it this far," the figure said, its voice a reflection of his own. "But do you know what you truly want, Slim? Do you know what your heart desires above all else?" Slim swallowed hard, his heart racing. I don't know," he admitted. "I thought I knew, but now I'm not so sure." The figure nodded. "That is the crux of the trial. You think you know what you want, but the heart's desires are often hidden beneath layers of fear, regret, and doubt. Only by confronting those fears can you truly understand what your heart longs for." Slim took a step forward, his mind racing. What was his heart's truest desire? Was it success? Peace? Love? He had always thought he knew, but now, standing before this version of himself, he wasn't sure anymore. The figure seemed to read his thoughts. "Your heart knows what it wants, but it is up to you to listen. You have to trust yourself, trust the journey, and accept that sometimes what the heart desires is not what the mind expects. As Slim stood there, looking into the eyes of this figure, a sense of clarity began to wash over him. He had spent so much time looking for external answers, seeking guidance from others, trying to make sense of his life. But in this moment, he realized that the answer had always been within him. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The noise of the world faded, and in the silence, he heard the answer. His heart's true desire was not to seek validation from others, nor was it to achieve some external goal. His heart desired peace, freedom, and the courage to embrace his true self without fear, without doubt. When he opened his eyes again, the figure had disappeared, and the mist began to fade, revealing the clearing once more. The woman stood before him, her expression soft and understanding. "You faced the trial," she said, her voice filled with approval. "You now know what your heart truly desires. Remember, Slim, the heart knows the way if you listen." Slim stood silently, a sense of peace settling over him. He had faced his deepest fears, confronted his heart, and emerged stronger for it. He now understood that the journey was not just about seeking answers from the world around him, but about trusting himself, his heart, and the path ahead. With a newfound sense of clarity, Slim stepped forward, ready for whatever came next. The journey was far from over, but he now knew that he had everything he needed to continue: his heart, his courage, and the wisdom to see the truth in every step. Slim continued his journey through the forest, but now something had shifted within him. The trial of the heart had opened his eyes to a truth he had long avoided. The real journey was not just one of external discovery, but one of deep internal awakening. As he walked, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, his every step guided by the newfound understanding of his heart's deepest desires. The forest had begun to change as well. The trees, once dark and oppressive, now seemed to breathe with life. The path was no longer obscured by shadows, but illuminated by the gentle glow of the moon filtering through the leaves above. Slim no longer felt the same sense of uncertainty he had felt at the beginning of his journey. He had faced the darkness within and emerged stronger, more attuned to the truth that lay beneath the surface of the world around him. As he continued along the path, he came across a small stream, its waters sparkling under the moonlight. The sound of the water was soothing, a gentle melody that seemed to match the rhythm of his heartbeat. He paused for a moment, kneeling beside the stream, dipping his fingers into the cool water. The sensation was refreshing, grounding him in the present moment. It was then that he noticed something strange, a soft, golden light dancing on the surface of the water. At first, he thought it was a trick of the moonlight, but as he watched, the light seemed to take form, swirling and shifting as though it were alive. The water shimmered, revealing a vision. The scene before him unfolded like a dream. He saw himself standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over a vast, endless horizon. The sky above was a brilliant shade of blue, the sun rising over the distant mountains, casting a warm, golden glow across the landscape. The air was crisp, and Slim felt a deep sense of freedom from his past, from the doubts and fears that had once held him back. The vision shifted, and he saw himself walking through a bustling city, surrounded by people, but no longer feeling lost among them. He walked with purpose, his head held high, his heart open and free. He saw himself smiling, laughing, sharing moments of connection with others, no longer afraid of the world around him. Slim felt a deep warmth spread through his chest as he watched these images. He understood now. This was the life he had been seeking all along, the life he had once thought was out of reach. The clarity he had gained in the trial of the heart had unlocked the path to this future, and it was a future he could now see and feel, not as something distant and unattainable, but as something real and within his grasp. As the vision began to fade, the golden light receded into the water, leaving behind only the soft ripples of the stream. Slim sat back, his heart racing with excitement and a newfound sense of peace. He had seen the life he was meant to live, and it was waiting for him. All he had to do was continue walking the path. The voice that had guided him before spoke once again, this time not from the shadows, but from within. Do you see now, Slim? The life you desire is not somewhere in the future. It is already within you, waiting to be lived. You have already chosen the path that will lead you there, and now you must walk it with your heart open and your soul unburdened. Slim stood up slowly, his legs steady beneath him. He took one last look at the stream, the moonlight reflecting off its surface like a mirror. The vision had shown him the life he wanted, but more importantly, it had shown him that it was his to claim. It wasn't a distant dream, it was his reality, waiting for him to step into it. With a deep breath, Slim turned away from the stream and continued along the path. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, he felt confident. He was no longer walking in the dark, unsure of where he was going. He was walking with purpose, guided by the light of his own heart. The forest around him seemed to hum with energy, as though it too had awakened to his newfound understanding. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves whispering softly in the wind. Slim smiled to himself, feeling the truth of the moment settle deep within him. In that moment, he knew that he was no longer seeking the answers to life's great mysteries. He had already found them within himself. The key to his happiness, his peace, and his future was not something external. It was within him all along. It had always been there, waiting for him to awaken to it. And so, Slim walked forward, his steps steady and sure, knowing that the path ahead, no matter how challenging, was one he was ready to face. The darkness no longer held power over him. The unknown no longer frightened him. He was ready to embrace the light, ready to live the life he had always dreamed of, and he knew that nothing could stop him now. For the first time, Slim felt truly free. As Slim continued down the now familiar path, a sense of serenity washed over him. The journey so far had been filled with challenges, revelations, and moments of deep self-reflection. But he had emerged from each test stronger, clearer, and more attuned to the truth within him. With each step, the forest seemed less like a place of darkness and fear, and more like a sanctuary, a space where he could be fully present with himself, free from the noise of the world outside. Yet, as he rounded another bend, something shifted in the air. The atmosphere became still, the sounds of the forest fading into a haunting silence. The trees grew denser here, their trunks gnarled and twisted, the canopy above thick and oppressive. A coldness settled in the air, and Slim felt a shiver run down his spine. He had been in the forest long enough to recognize when things were about to change. Ahead of him, a large stone archway appeared, carved with intricate symbols he could not understand. The stone seemed ancient, worn by time, but still sturdy, standing proudly as if guarding something important. A feeling of both awe and trepidation filled Slim. Something told him that crossing this threshold would mark the beginning of a new phase in his journey. He approached the archway cautiously, his heartbeat quickening. As he passed under the stone arch, the air seemed to vibrate with energy, and a deep, resonant voice echoed through the stillness, reverberating in his bones. "You have come far, Slim," the voice said, its tone both soothing and powerful. "But to continue, you must first face the guardian." The ground beneath his feet trembled slightly as the voice spoke, and Slim felt a deep sense of unease. He had encountered many challenges already, but this felt different. The guardian, whoever or whatever that was, seemed to hold the key to the next step in his journey. Before he could gather his thoughts, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing. The guardian was unlike any being Slim had ever seen, a silhouette of shadow and light, its form shifting and shifting like a reflection in water. Its face was obscured, but its presence radiated an energy that was both comforting and intimidating. "I am the guardian of the path," the voice spoke again, now coming from the figure itself. "I exist to protect what lies beyond, and to ensure that those who seek it are worthy. Your heart has proven strong, and your resolve unwavering. But there is one final test you must face, a test of trust." Slim stood silently, feeling the weight of the guardian's words. A test of trust. What did that mean? He had already faced his doubts and fears, had already come to terms with the deepest parts of himself. Surely, this final test wouldn't be so difficult. The guardian seemed to sense his uncertainty. Trust is not merely the absence of doubt. It is the ability to surrender fully to the unknown, to let go of control and allow what must be to unfold. You have learned to trust yourself, but now you must learn to trust the path and the journey itself. The guardian raised one hand, and before Slim could react, the world around him seemed to dissolve into mist. The trees, the ground, the sky all disappeared, leaving him in a vast, open space that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. He was no longer in the forest. He was suspended in a realm of pure possibility, the space between dreams and reality. "You will not be given any answers here, Slim," the guardian continued, its voice echoing all around him. "You must choose. Will you trust the path and take the next step, or will you cling to the certainty of what you know?" Slim's mind raced. He had come so far, had faced so much, and now he was being asked to let go of everything, to trust without knowing what awaited him on the other side, to step into the unknown once again. As the mist swirled around him, he felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of fear. The fear of losing control, the fear of the unknown. But beneath that fear, there was something else, something deeper. A whisper from within that told him to trust, to believe in the journey, and to surrender. For a long moment, Slim stood in the vast expanse, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on him. And then, slowly, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He could feel the fear still present, but it no longer controlled him. He had faced his doubts, had confronted his own darkness, and had emerged stronger each time. With a quiet determination, Slim made his choice. He would trust, he would let go. The moment he made the decision, the mist began to dissipate, and the world slowly came back into focus. He was standing once again in the forest, the stone archway behind him, and the guardian before him, its form now less imposing, more grounded. "You have chosen wisely," the guardian said, its voice now filled with approval. "Trusting the path is not easy, but it is the only way to move forward. You have proven that you are ready for what lies ahead." Slim felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. The guardian's presence had no longer felt intimidating, but instead like a guide, someone who understood the journey he had undertaken and was now offering him the next step. "You are free to continue," the guardian said, stepping aside. "The path is yours to walk. Go forward with trust in your heart, and you will find the answers you seek." Slim nodded, his heart light with the certainty that he had made the right choice. As the guardian faded into the shadows, Slim felt a deep sense of gratitude and readiness. He had faced the test, had surrendered his need for control, and in doing so, had unlocked the next phase of his journey. With renewed confidence, Slim turned and walked forward, his steps now guided by trust and faith in the path ahead. The journey was far from over, but with every step he grew stronger, more aligned with his purpose, and more at peace with the unknown. And so he walked, knowing that no matter what came next, he was ready. The forest had become more than just a physical place for Slim. It had transformed into a mirror of his soul, reflecting every fear, doubt, and hope that resided within him. But now, as he continued along the path that had led him through so many trials, he sensed that something was different. The air felt lighter, the ground beneath his feet firmer. The shadows that had once felt oppressive now seemed to dance with the light, and the trees, ancient and wise, seemed to welcome him with open arms. Slim had long understood that the journey was about more than just the external world. It was about discovering the truths that lay hidden within him, unlocking the deepest layers of his heart and mind. But now, with the final test behind him, he realized that the journey was not just a series of trials, it was the beginning of something new. He was awakening to a reality that existed beyond his own limitations. As he walked deeper into the forest, the path began to narrow, the trees growing taller, their branches reaching out as if to guide him. A soft golden light filtered through the leaves, casting a warm glow over the ground. It was a peaceful, serene place, and Slim felt a sense of calm settle within him. But in the distance, there was a faint sound, almost like the distant hum of a song. It was beautiful, almost otherworldly. Drawn by the sound, Slim continued onward, the melody growing clearer with each step. Soon, he arrived at a small clearing. At the center of the clearing stood a large stone circle, its surface covered in intricate markings and symbols. The golden light seemed to emanate from the stone itself, casting long shadows across the ground. In the center of the circle stood a figure, a woman, her face serene and timeless, her eyes filled with an infinite wisdom. She was cloaked in a robe of shimmering light, and as she turned toward Slim, a sense of deep recognition filled him. He had seen her before, in glimpses and flashes, in dreams and visions. She was not just a guide, she was the embodiment of everything Slim had been seeking. "You have come far, Slim," the woman said, her voice soft yet powerful. "You have faced your darkness, embraced your heart, and learned to trust the path. But now, you stand at the threshold of your final awakening. The journey you have taken has led you here, but this is not the end. It is only the beginning." Slim stood still, his heart pounding in his chest. He had come so far, had overcome so much, and now, at the very end of his journey, he was being told that it was only the beginning. He felt a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. The woman stepped forward, her presence gentle yet commanding. "The path you have walked has been a journey of self-discovery," she continued. "But true awakening comes when you release all that you think you know. The mind can only take you so far. It is the heart that will guide you now." Slim's mind raced. He had worked so hard to understand himself, to unravel the mysteries of his past, to face his fears. But what did it mean to release all that he thought he knew? What was left to discover? The woman smiled knowingly. "The final awakening is not a discovery of something new, but a recognition of the truth that has always been within you. It is the realization that you are not separate from the world, but an integral part of it. The answers you seek are not out there, in the distant future, but in the present moment, in the stillness of your heart." Slim's breath caught in his throat as the woman's words began to resonate deep within him. He had always searched for answers, sought external validation, looked for something to give his life meaning. But now he realized the search had always been inward. The answers were not outside himself, but within. And the key to finding them was not through effort or striving, but through surrender and acceptance. The woman reached out, placing a hand on Slim's chest, over his heart. "You have already awakened, Slim," she said softly. "You have already found the truth you sought. Now you must live it. Live with the knowledge that you are whole, that you are enough, just as you are. The world is not something to conquer, but something to experience. You are not separate from it, but a reflection of it." Slim felt a wave of warmth flood through him, a deep sense of peace and clarity. The weight he had carried for so long, the weight of uncertainty, of searching, of longing, began to melt away. He realized that he had always been enough. He had always been whole. There was no need to search for something outside of himself to feel complete. He had simply needed to awaken to the truth of who he already was. The woman stepped back, her eyes filled with compassion. "You are ready, Slim. The journey will continue, but you will no longer be lost. You will walk with the knowing that everything you seek is already within you." Slim closed his eyes, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in his soul. He had spent so much of his life feeling lost, searching for meaning, for answers. But now he understood that the meaning was not something to be found, it was something to be lived. It was the quiet knowing that everything was already as it should be, that he was exactly where he needed to be, and that his heart, his soul, was enough. When he opened his eyes, the woman was gone, her presence lingering in the air like a soft, fading fragrance. The stone circle remained, bathed in golden light, a symbol of the truth Slim had discovered. The forest around him was still, peaceful, and he could feel the world vibrating with life. It was no longer a place of fear or uncertainty. It was a place of belonging. Slim took a deep breath, feeling the calm of the moment seep into his being. The final awakening had occurred, and with it came the understanding that the journey was never about finding the destination, but about embracing the unfolding of life itself. With a heart full of peace and clarity, Slim stepped forward, ready to live the life he had always dreamed of, not because it was something to strive for, but because it was already within him, waiting to be lived. And so he walked, not in search of answers, but in celebration of the journey, knowing that with every step, he was living the truth of who he was. Slim stood at the edge of the clearing, the soft glow of the stone circle still lingering in the air, like a gentle reminder of the truth he had discovered. The world around him felt different, as though it had shifted in a way he could not quite explain. The trees, the wind, the earth beneath his feet, everything seemed to be vibrating with a quiet energy, a peaceful hum that resonated deep within his soul. It was as if the universe itself had taken a deep breath, and Slim was now part of that breath, part of something far greater than himself. He had spent so much of his life searching, striving, and struggling to understand who he was, and what his purpose was. But now, in this moment, he realized that he had been searching in the wrong direction. The answers had never been out there, in the world or in the future. They had always been within him, waiting to be uncovered, waiting for him to remember. And now he remembered. The fear and anxiety that had once plagued him seemed like distant memories, fading with each step he took on this path. There was no longer a need to fight or struggle against the currents of life. He understood now that true peace came not from controlling everything around him, but from embracing life as it was, with all its unpredictability and imperfection. The journey had never been about finding a destination. It had been about learning to be present, to accept, and to trust in the unfolding of each moment. Slim smiled softly to himself, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for everything he had experienced. The trials, the challenges, the moments of doubt, all of them had been necessary. They had shaped him into the person he was today, and he was no longer afraid of them. They had shown him the depths of his own heart, and in that discovery, he had found a strength he had never known. As he continued walking, the forest seemed to open up before him. The path, once uncertain and shadowed, was now bathed in light, stretching out ahead of him like an endless road leading toward the horizon. There were no more obstacles, no more fears to confront, only the freedom to walk the path with an open heart. And yet, even as he walked forward, Slim knew that the journey was far from over. Life, with all its beauty and mystery, would continue to unfold, and there would still be challenges to face. But now, he understood that he did not have to face them alone. He was not just a solitary traveler on this path. He was connected to everything, the earth, the trees, the stars, and all the people he would encounter along the way. Each step he took was a part of a much larger dance, one that had been going on for eons, and he was a vital part of it. The realization brought with it a profound sense of peace. It was a peace that came from knowing that he was exactly where he was meant to be, that he was always supported by the universe, and that the path he was walking was the path he had chosen, consciously or unconsciously, long ago. There was no need to rush, no need to fear what lay ahead. He was exactly where he needed to be, and that was enough. As Slim walked, the forest gradually gave way to an open field, the golden light of the setting sun casting a warm glow over the landscape. In the distance, he could see a small village, its houses nestled in the valley below, smoke rising from chimneys in the cool evening air. It was a peaceful, idyllic scene, and Slim felt a deep sense of connection to it. He knew that his journey had led him here, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. This village, this moment, was the culmination of everything he had experienced, the manifestation of the peace he had found within himself. It was a symbol of the life he had always longed for, a life of simplicity, of connection, of quiet contentment. As he approached the village, Slim felt a sense of calm settle deeper into his being. He had walked through the darkness, faced his fears, and embraced his heart. And now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he understood that the journey was never about finding the perfect destination. It was about learning to walk with peace, with trust, and with love in his heart, no matter where the path led. The village, like the forest, was a reflection of his inner world. It was a place of balance, of harmony, of people living in tune with nature and each other. Slim knew that this was not the end of his journey, but rather a new beginning. The peace he had found within himself would now radiate outward, touching everyone he met, every place he visited, and every moment he experienced. He smiled as he walked into the village, his heart light and free. The journey had not been easy, but it had been worth it. And now, with each step he took, he carried the wisdom of the forest, the lessons of the heart, and the peace of the final awakening with him. He had come home not just to a place, but to himself. Slim knew that life was an ongoing journey, a never-ending unfolding of experiences, challenges, and growth. But now, he was ready for whatever came next. He was ready to live, to love, to be, and to embrace the path ahead with an open heart and a peaceful soul. And so, with each step he took, Slim walked into his new life, a life of peace, of trust, and of deep, unwavering connection to the world around him. The journey was never truly over. It was simply a new chapter, one filled with endless possibilities. The path ahead was his to walk, and he walked it with grace, knowing that no matter what came next, he was exactly where he was meant to be. As you listen to this story, I want you to take a moment to reflect on your own journey. Life is full of challenges, moments of doubt, and times when you may feel lost or uncertain about the path ahead. But remember, just like Slim, you too have within you the strength, the wisdom, and the courage to overcome anything that comes your way. You are not defined by your past or your fears. You are not your mistakes or your struggles. You are more than that. You are a soul on a journey, learning, growing, and evolving every day. Each step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to the truth of who you are. The answers you seek are not out there in the world, they are within you, waiting to be discovered. Life is not about finding the perfect destination, but about embracing each moment with an open heart and trusting that everything is unfolding as it should. When you face uncertainty or fear, remember that those are simply invitations to go deeper, to trust yourself more fully, and to embrace the unknown with courage. So as you listen, allow yourself to be present in this moment. Let go of any worries or doubts you may have. Trust that you are exactly where you need to be, and that every challenge you face is an opportunity to grow. The journey is not always easy, but it is always worth it. And at the end of it, you will discover that the peace, the love, and the wisdom you have been searching for have always been within you, waiting to be awakened. So take a deep breath and know that you are not alone. You are connected to something far greater than yourself, and you have everything you need within you to live a life of peace, purpose, and joy. Keep walking your path, one step at a time, knowing that with every step, you are becoming the person you were always meant to be.